This is the incredible true story of how one person sold millions of dollars worth of paintings to the art world. But what no one knew is that the paintings were all fake. The story begins in the year 1995. An art collector in Germany takes a look at a painting that he acquired a decade ago. The piece is called Aragon and Mara. It was supposedly done by Johannes Molzahn, a fairly well-known German expressionist painter. And for some reason, the collector begins to have doubts whether it's actually genuine. And so he decides to get confirmation, and he submits the painting for scientific analysis. Not long after, he receives the results, and his concern is validated. The painting is fake. Feeling angered that he was deceived, the collector begins tracking down other Molzahn paintings that were sold around the same time. One that was purchased by Molzahn's widow, and another one bought by a Berlin gallery owner. Both of them also turn out to be fakes. And the final nail in the coffin comes from a Molzahn that was said to have been painted in 1920. But experts discovered that it uses a color pigment that wasn't even available until 1957, 37 years later than the painting's supposed origin date. With all this evidence, the collector goes to the police and he tells them all the information he has uncovered. An official investigation begins in order to find whoever is forging these paintings, and this investigation seemed to make quick progress, as police discovered that all these fake paintings were sold by one single art dealer from Berlin. So naturally, police question him to find out his source. The art dealer then tries to point them to the next link in the chain, the person he bought the fake paintings from. But despite their best efforts, the police are unable to find this source. And even if they could, it wouldn't matter, as they discovered that the statute of limitations has run out on this crime. Too many years had passed, and whoever forged these paintings just got away. But what the police don't know is that these fake paintings only represented the very tip of the iceberg. In fact, they were hot on the trail of uncovering one of the largest art fraud scandals in modern history. And the man at the center of it all has just slipped through their fingers. While the police office investigating this crime in Berlin closes the case on these fake Molzahn paintings, about 300 miles away in Viersen, Germany, a man sits in his studio ready to begin creating a new masterpiece. His name is Wolfgang Beltracchi, and he's currently putting the finishing touches on a painting he calls Mädchen mit Schwan, Girl with Swan. The canvas he's working on is a genuine old canvas he had found at a flea market, but what he filled this blank canvas with is not genuine. When he's ready to sign his masterpiece, instead of putting his own name, he signs the canvas as Heinrich Campendonck, another German expressionist from the same era as Johannes Molzahn. With his job done, Wolfgang calls in his wife, Helene, into the room, who prepares herself for their next step. She takes the painting to an art dealer who works for Christie's, a world-renowned auction house based in London. In the art world, Christie's and Sotheby's are the two places for the most expensive and desired artworks in the world, often auctioning off paintings worth millions or even hundreds of millions. When looking at the fake painting, the dealer is impressed. It certainly looks authentic. But where did it come from? And how did Helene come to be in possession of such a rare find? Helene then makes up her story. She claims that the painting originates from a man called Alfred Flechtheim, an art dealer who lived through the Second World War. Alfred Flechtheim is not made up. He was, in fact, a real person. But Helene had no real connection to him. After the Nazis rose to power in Germany, they began confiscating art which they deemed degenerate. They were particularly focused on modern art, as it represented something the Nazis didn't want. It was known to break conventional rules and challenge traditions. and the Nazis especially cracked down on Jewish artists and collectors. Alfred Flechtheim was a prominent art dealer, and Flechtheim was Jewish, so the Nazis seized several galleries he owned and took away his art collection. Flechtheim eventually had to flee from Germany, and it is unknown just how many paintings from his collection were lost or destroyed. This part about Alfred Flechtheim is all true, and it is well-documented history. But now the lies begin. Because according to Helene, before all of his galleries could be seized, Flechtheim stashed many paintings with her grandfather, Werner Jäger, who was able to hide the collection from the plundering Nazis. And now, many decades later, her grandfather has passed his collection down to Helene and her sister Jeanette. The Christie's dealer is fascinated with the tale, and he eagerly buys her painting Girl with Swan for £67,000, or around $100,000 US. And once the painting is up for auction, an expert, her name is Andrea Firmenich, authenticates that the painting is real, giving credibility not just to this one piece, but to the whole collection of Helene's grandfather. The newly discovered paintings get the name Jäger Collection, and if Wolfgang and Helene happen to sell more of these paintings, they could make an astonishing amount of money. The story was great. Works of art believed to be destroyed by the Nazis, now discovered in a safe place. The believable background story was one part of Wolfgang and Helene's success. The other was that Wolfgang came up with a clever approach to creating his forgeries. In the art world, there are lots of famous paintings that went missing. But rather than recreating famous lost works, Wolfgang paints entirely new pieces of art, paintings that never even existed in the first place. And he passes them off as never-before-seen masterpieces. Wolfgang also avoids artists that would attract the absolute highest scrutiny, such as Picasso or Van Gogh, and chooses instead to create paintings from artists with massive catalogs, such as Heinrich Campendonck and Max Ernst. In the past, Wolfgang had mostly sold his paintings to flea markets and small-time art dealers, with some help from a friend, Otto Schulte-Kellinghaus. But now, with his Jäger collection being accepted as genuine by the art establishment, an entirely new world has seemingly opened up. But just before he can start forging more, the past is threatening to catch up with him. Wolfgang hears about the police investigation related to his fake Mulsanne paintings. As mentioned before, police almost had made a connection to him. Immediately, Wolfgang and Helene pack as much as they can into a motorhome, and they move their family from Germany to southern France. Though the timing of their disappearance is suspicious, the two, to this day, heavily deny any allegation that they were on the run. Rather, they insist their daughter was chronically ill and needed a change of environment. Once settled in France, though, Wolfgang isn't finished supplying the art world with his paintings. Anytime he finishes a new one, either his wife Helene, her sister Jeanette, or Wolfgang's friend Otto will take the painting to various auction houses. There, they face little questions about the authenticity of the artworks, likely because art experts have now verified many of the previous forgeries. Andrea Firmenich has included several of Wolfgang's paintings in her Campendonck catalog, and Werner Spies, a leading expert on Max Ernst, has also verified 7 forgeries as well. The Jäger collection becomes accepted in the art world. And with the backing of the experts, Wolfgang and his wife go on to begin amassing a fortune as the price of their paintings keeps rising. One of his fake Campendonck paintings sells to actor Steve Martin for $860,000, and a forged Max Ernst painting sells to a French magazine publisher for a staggering $7 million. The Beltrakis had put together a well-working system for creating the artworks, marketing them to the art world, and ultimately selling them. Now, if you're building a real, legitimate business, you'd want all your systems to work together. And that is where Odoo comes in. Instead of juggling separate apps for accounting, marketing, and sales, Odoo brings all that into one platform. Let's say you're selling your own art. You can create a website for your business using their website builder. Then you build a product page using their e-commerce platform. With their marketing app, you can manage all your social platforms through one single interface. If you ever want to start hiring people, you can handle that through Odoo as well. It is way cheaper than paying for dozens of different platforms. And it is way more efficient because all these apps communicate with each other. Your first app is free for life. You can add more apps as your business grows. If you want access to their full suite of apps, it is just $24.90 a month. So go to odoo.com/neo or click the link in the description to get started. As for the Beltrakis, despite the background story, some questions still continue to pop up regarding the mysterious Jäger collection. Some buyers begin asking for documentation that could support the history of the collection, or they want to see some sort of proof of Werner Jäger's ties to Alfred Flechtheim. Everyone wanted to believe the story, but some piece of hard evidence would seal the deal. And so, Wolfgang and Helene come up with a simple solution. Wolfgang prints out copies of several of his paintings that have already been sold. And next, he frames them on a wall in his kitchen. Then, Helene dresses herself in the clothes of her grandmother, Josephine Jäger, and she poses in front of the paintings, sitting at an old kitchen table. Wolfgang then takes her photograph, using a time-authentic camera and making sure it's slightly out of focus to help hide the fact that the woman in the photo is actually Helene. Then, Wolfgang prints the picture on old pre-war developing paper, and the result is this. A fake family photo that looks like it could be from the 1930s, while in reality it was taken in the 90s. This painting on the left side of the photograph is actually a fake imitation of Fernand Léger, and this one on the right is a fake Max Ernst. This staged photograph eases any doubts that were had about the authenticity of the Jäger collection, and Wolfgang is able to continue creating more paintings that will be sold by Helene, Jeanette, and Otto, as the Beltrakis are amassing a fortune.
At 80,000, 82,000, 84,000 pounds.
That is until 2006, when everything would change. It all starts with another Heinrich Campendonck forgery, as Wolfgang is putting the finishing touches on a piece he calls Red Picture with Horses. This time, the title of the painting is real, but the actual painting itself has been lost to time. After finishing his rendition of what he thinks the painting would look like, it's time to pass it off. This time, Jeanette will be the one taking the painting to a prestigious art gallery, and Red Picture with Horses proves to be a hit. A Maltese company, Tresteco, has placed a winning bid on the painting, and they pay over $3 million for their prize. So far, nothing seems out of the ordinary, at least until the company asks for a certificate of authenticity, which of course doesn't exist. Since the auction house cannot provide the certificate, Tresteco decides to have their own analysis done on the painting, and they are put in touch with Andrea Firmenich, the same Campendonck expert who has previously been fooled by Wolfgang's forgeries. But this time, with so much money on the line, Firmenich decides to take extra measures to make sure that the painting is genuine. She begins with the closest she has to a certificate of authenticity, a label. Fixed to the back of the painting that claims it is from the Alfred Flechtheim collection, there is a small label. It has the artist Heinrich Campendonck's signature with a sketched photo of Flechtheim beneath, acting as his seal for his collection. Firmenich then reaches out to Ralf Jentsch, an expert on the life of Alfred Flechtheim, to help in determining if this label is legitimate. And as soon as Jentsch sees the label, he can't help but feel bewildered that anyone would ever take it to be genuine. He has seen the real Flechtheim labels, and the silly caricature on this one is an instant giveaway that it isn't real. He is convinced and lets Firmenich know that the label is a forgery. Now that she knows she's on the trail of exposing Red Picture with Horses as a fake, Firmenich decides to send the actual painting for scientific analysis. And the results are equally as damning, as history repeats itself. When the German police investigated the fake Mulsanne paintings in the 90s, they found out that a color pigment had been used that simply wasn't available when it was supposedly created. And this time, in 2006, again, scientific analysis reveals that this painting as well contains a special pigment, titanium white, which did not exist when the painting was supposedly done. And so, in the coming years, the house of cards begins to fall. Firmenich takes her findings back to Tristeco, the company that purchased the painting, and almost immediately a civil trial begins to recover the $3 million from the auction house. At the same time, Ralph Jentsch begins scouring the art world to uncover more paintings marked with the same label on the back. And in just 2 weeks, he comes up with 15 paintings, all supposedly from the Jäger collection, bearing the fake Flechtheim label. And with more scrutiny, the story Helene once gave also begins to fall apart. It turns out that Werner Jäger was just a teenager when Flechtheim's gallery was seized. And to make the story even more implausible, Jäger grew up to join the Nazi party, making it incredibly unlikely he would have befriended a Jewish man like Flechtheim. With the evidence stacking up of a major fraud scandal, Ralph Jentsch takes his findings to the German police, and a criminal case is opened. Through investigation, police find out that the auction house had acquired Red Picture with Horses through Jeanette. They also discovered that her sister Helene has delivered paintings in the past. They then begin wiretapping the phones of Helene and Jeanette, and for the first time learn of the existence of Wolfgang, realizing that he is at the center of these fake paintings. And with enough evidence collected, the German police want to make a move on Wolfgang and Helene's estate. But since it is located in France, they need the cooperation of the French authorities. But the French court is on vacation, and no one is available to help the case move forward. Nevertheless, the German police discovered that Wolfgang and Helene also own property in Germany in the city of Freiburg. They find a large modern villa spanning over several floors on a hill. And not soon after, Wolfgang and Helene venture on a trip to this home. With weapons drawn, police stop their car and order them out into the rain. Wolfgang and Helene are arrested, and their children are left behind with no idea what's going on. Police also arrest Helene's sister Jeanette, as well as Otto, the other friend helping the operation. And though the evidence seemed to stack up against Wolfgang and his cohorts, there was one major problem. The courts couldn't prove without a doubt that Wolfgang was the one who was actually creating the fake paintings. And rather than risk taking the case to trial, both sides decided to come to a plea agreement. All 4 accused pled guilty to charges of fraud for 14 forged paintings, though the real number of paintings faked is believed to be way higher, as it is likely that there are hundreds more still out there that have yet to be discovered. Wolfgang is sentenced to 6 years in prison, Helene and Otto are given 4 years each, and Jeanette is given a suspended sentence. They are all allowed to serve their sentences in an open prison, meaning they can still work during the day 5 days a week, and return to prison every night. After serving his sentence and being released early on parole, Wolfgang returns to the world as a mixed figure. Some see him as a hero, exposing the art world and exposing the experts as fake and superficial. Others point out that he didn't commit the fraud to make a statement, but rather as a self-serving way to make a profit for himself. Today, the notoriety that came surrounding Wolfgang's time as an art forger has kept him in the spotlight.
What you do is horrible, ripping off geniuses who spent years perfecting their styles.
You only cared about that painting when you thought it was created by someone famous.
And all the press coverage made him a successful artist in his own right. Wolfgang still paints, and now Wolfgang signs his paintings under his own name, and he seems to be enjoying his newfound fame. Wolfgang's life has all the pieces you'd expect from a great story. A person with a rare talent, a partner who stood by his side through everything, the two of them plotting one of the biggest art world hoaxes in modern history. It's a love story, a crime story, a story about exposing the art world and getting away with it for years. And even when they were finally caught, the ending wasn't some big downfall. They did their time, but today they live in comfort, painting what they want without having to hide anymore. But if you're looking for the arc of personal growth, the kind that turns a trickster into something more, you won't find it here. Because it's impossible to say. Did Wolfgang expose the greed of the art world? Or did he simply take advantage of it to satisfy his own greed?